to another edition of This Week in Agriculture, a presentation of the Communications Unit, Ministry of Agriculture. I'm Christopher Holder. Vision 25 by 2025 is a regional strategy by CARICOM to reduce the region's food import bill by 25% over the next 3 years, or by the year 2025. The vision requires that the region looks within for the food it currently imports from extra-regional sources. For instance, 98% of the region's poultry meats and products are imported. The plan calls for Guyana, Trinidad, and other countries in the region to ramp up its production of the commodity in order to be able to meet the poultry needs of the Caribbean. This is just one commodity included in the Vision 25 by 2025, and but one area in which Guyana is strategically poised to take advantage of the opportunities that will abound for our local farmers and producers. This is the message that is being shared with our local stakeholders across the country by Agriculture Minister Zulfikar Mustafa in his many engagements with the nation's farmers. This past week was no different. We will bring you highlights of Minister's engagements, from his interventions in South Rheinfeldt and Greater Georgetown to his engagements with farmers of Melanie Damashana on the east coast of Demerara during a ministerial outreach to the community Saturday. In light of recent flooding and the lodging of floodwaters in some communities, the Ministry of Agriculture through the GLDA is warning of the dangers lurking in stagnant floodwaters. Leptospirosis is caused by bacteria that results in severe damage to the liver, kidneys, and other organs of both animals and humans. One risk factor includes walking or playing in floodwaters, especially floodwaters that have become stagnant. Leptospirosis is transmitted through the urine of infected rodents, livestock, and pets. The leptospirobacteria can enter the body of animals and humans through drinking, through cuts in the skin, or through mucous membranes in the eyes, nose, and mouth. Symptoms of leptospirosis in both animals and humans include fever, jaundice, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, loss of appetite, weakness, stiffness, and severe muscle pain. In light of the current rainy season and widespread flooding, livestock and pet owners are advised to implement good agricultural practices and, where possible, have your animals vaccinated against this disease immediately. A message from the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. Farmers and members of the public in general are being advised that tampering with drainage and irrigation structures in any way is prohibited under the Drainage and Irrigation Act. So too are practices that result in damage to access dams, such as using an inadequate length of tube to irrigate farmlands, resulting in erosion of the earthen dams. Also contrary to the Drainage and Irrigation Act is the practice of erecting structures or planting on government reserves. This will not be condoned. These reserves are to be clear at all times to provide access for the excavation of the channels. Livestock farmers should also be aware that they are liable for any damages caused by their cattle or swine to dams or reserves alongside D&I channels, as is the case when the animals cross these channels. Individuals wishing to erect bridges across D&I structures should first contact the NDIA before doing so. Those found guilty under the Act are liable to fines and imprisonment for up to 3 months. A message from the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. The Ministry of Agriculture is warning members of the public that it is illegal to dump garbage of any kind near to or into drainage and irrigation waterways across the country. The NDIA, the agency tasked with the maintenance of drainage and irrigation in Guyana, has noted that there is an alarming increase in the incidence of garbage getting into D&I waterways and causing blockages in the first instance. But worse than that, the garbage that includes clothing, rotting carcasses, pieces of wood and metal gets past protective grills of the critical mobile and fixed pumps, resulting in damage to the pumps, which have to be taken out of service for repairs, placing communities at risk, especially during the rainy season. The Ministry of Agriculture notes that when this happens, millions have to be spent on repairs to the pumps and on clearing the canals of debris thrown there by irresponsible citizens. The ministry warns that rangers of the NDIA will be on the lookout for those engaging in this illegal practice. Persons caught will be made to face the full force of the law. A message from the NDIA, Ministry of Agriculture. The National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute offers specialized services to Guyana's crop farmers. We conduct research and provide extension and quarantine services to ensure Guyana's food and nutrition security, sustainable agricultural development, and income generation for our farmers. We assist farmers to adapt climate-smart technologies, and at a subsidized cost, farmers could now purchase shade plastic, shade mesh, and irrigation sprinklers to avoid crop loss from the effects of climate change. Our organic soil enhancers are inexpensive and a viable alternative to imported brands. Farm certification, import and export permits for agricultural commodities, soil testing, pest and disease management, among other services, are provided free of cost. Farmers can access quality planting citrus material at our 9 plant nursery locations. We are working with Hope Estate and other stakeholders to resuscitate the coconut industry. For more information, visit our website or call us on telephone number 220-2841, 220-5730. Minister Zulfikar Mustafa's week began Monday with a meeting involving himself, officials from the Guyana Rice Development Board, and the members of the Rice Farmers Fertilizer Registration and Verification Committee to discuss the government's fertilizer assistance program that was announced last May by His Excellency President Dr. Irfan Ali. The meeting focused on the list of farmers per region and who are eligible for assistance based on information gathered by the various subcommittee members represented. Commenting on the process, Minister Mustafa noted that at the end of the verification process, the final list should be as accurate as possible.
Let me be very frank with you all this time around, even if we have people or we have extra acreage, people wouldn't receive the fertilizer like that. We have to verify it and ensure that people receive what they have. Right? Remember, that is why both the Vice President, the President, and myself, we said that we want this committee, the oversight. If we had, we try our best during the flood relief. We had comrades on the ground to give us the names, and still we get in problem. People that say that they didn't receive, or who deserve not receive and who not deserve receive. So comrades, this here, all of us were saying before this that we need some help for the industry. We know fertilizer going up. We know that the rice is an important commodities for us, and rice bring in a lot of revenue for us. That is why the government is helping out in these sectors. These are productive sectors. And let me tell you all something. Over the last 2 years, since we got back into office, we never had a period of dry weather. Every single, today, now is the end of July, which is supposed to be the driest month in the year, July and August. We got flooding taking place again, heavy rainfall last night. Imagine if somebody who was there and didn't have your concern at heart, what would have happened to the industry? Although we know you all are punished, you all getting problem for bring out your paddy, you all getting problem, you all not get dry cut on the land, but still we try, both of us, the government and you all working together to devise strategy. And I am very, very optimistic by next week, this 168,000 acre might increase to close to about 200. Right? Because people still get the kind of, they're trying to go back to sow, right? So the point is that let us ensure that we have these persons who are entitled receive, and receive what they deserve. A person shouldn't receive short or shouldn't receive more, right? Now, I know for a fact that you all would have known by regions what the help will be equivalent to. So there are a number of suggestions how we should give the help. Now, before the week out, hopefully the fertilizer will be awarded to suppliers, right? And farmers can go, I think they will issue some form of vouchers or something. But I need a committee too. That is why I instructed GRDB that not only GRDB must sign on the voucher, the committee must come out and 1 or 2 persons sign on the voucher to verify, right? And the farmers can go to collect their fertilizer.
Committee members who raised the concerns about the quality of fertilizers being supplied locally were also assured that the Ministry's Pesticides and Toxic Chemicals Control Board has been monitoring the importation of fertilizer and now tests all supplies to ensure that it is in conformity with international standards. Also on Monday, Minister Mustafa announced that his ministry, through the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, NDIA, in collaboration with several community development councils in North and South Rheinbelt, will soon begin the rollout of several drainage rehabilitation projects to mitigate the effects of seasonal flooding in the communities. The intervention came a week after President Dr. Irfaan Ali made an impromptu visit to the South Georgetown communities. The minister was at the time meeting with the residents at his ministry, where he disclosed that $55 million would be expended for cleaning and other rehabilitation works on the drainage in the communities. The minister had indicated that works would begin soon after the signing of contracts between NDIA and the residents, who will be the ones hired to spearhead the projects. Also this past week, Minister Mustafa returned to the Meadowbank Wharf following reports that seafood stalls in the vicinity were being dismantled. In his meeting with the affected vendors, the Agriculture Minister assured them that their stalls would be fixed. He also informed the vendors that following a recent visit to the wharf by His Excellency President Dr. Irfaan Ali, a committee was set up to execute several short-term works following requests made by the persons who operate out of the facility. He explained that requests were made for a series of enhancement works to be carried out at and around the facility, but clarified that it is not the government's intention to displace anyone in the process. Among the many interventions that will be done in the short term is the establishment of an active security presence, toilet facilities with running water and lights. Some of these interventions have already occurred. The minister said that other works, such as the upgrades to the building and wharf, as well as the silting of the canal, will be done in the long term. Later in the week, Minister Mustafa took his message about the growing opportunities for wealth generation through agriculture to residents of the Essequibo Islands of Bonasika, Wakenham and Legwan. At Bonasika, he assured residents of government support for the consolidation and expansion of their thriving root crop industry, pointing out that the National Agriculture Research and Extension Institute will be working closely with them to ensure that the relevant technical guidance is provided.
The comrade talk about 6,000 pounds of yam. What I want us to do in this area here, if we can and continue to do what you are doing in terms of the citrus and the vegetables and so, but if we can have a concentrated effort to produce most of the root crops, sweet potato, edo, yam, dashin, ginger, those things we have ready market in the Caribbean. As a matter of fact, a month ago we were in Barbados. And the Barbadian them used to normally they import most of these produce citrus, fruits, vegetables from Latin America and the Central America. And when you put the pine from Central America and you put the Guyana pine, it's like chalk to cheese. Our pine is so tasty. And the comrades can tell you they use it in the hotel. Who went with us? Lionel went too. And they want now Guyana to supply all the fresh produce for them. But we don't have the amount. That is why we have to ramp up production.
Minister Mustafa also brought residents up to date on government's plans for agriculture development in their community, pointing out that Guyana now leads the CARICOM agenda on agriculture, with the region looking to reduce the food import bill by 25% by 2025. This, he said, places Guyana's farmers in an ideal position to play a major role in this regard.
So if we have to reduce this bill by 25%, $2 billion approximately, in 3 years' time, we have to reduce. We have to see what are the commodities that we are importing that we can produce in the Caribbean so that we can stop importing those commodities. And some of the commodities that we are importing, things like chicken product, poultry meat, 98% of the poultry meat and the poultry product that the Caribbean use are coming from outside of the region. 98%, imagine that. How much foreign exchange we have to import that. So that is one of the items that we highlight and we earmark that we have to reduce that importation. So that means Guyana Trinidad, Suriname, Barbados, Jamaica, Belize have the potential of supplying to the Caribbean all the poultry meat and poultry product. We in Guyana is self-sufficient already, Dr. Walram will tell you. But that doesn't mean that we can expand. We have to expand our poultry industry to be more self-sufficient, because we as a national, or we as a nation, we are consuming more. When you look at the per capita consumption, we are consuming more meat than any other Caribbean country almost. But the point I am making, we have to produce more. If we have to produce more meat, then we can supply the Caribbean. The president, who is the lead head on agriculture, had a meeting with all the CARICOM agriculture minister not so long ago. And he asked specifically what help they need so that we can push the poultry industry forward.
Following an analysis of the drainage works required by the NDIA to provide proper drainage to lands currently being cultivated at Bonasika, and which requires a financial outlay of approximately $120 million, Minister Mustapha assured the residents that despite the sum not being catered for in this year's national budget, work will nevertheless begin almost immediately to bring relief to the community. Across at Wakenham, Minister Mustapha promised a number of interventions, including the provision of an additional excavator for the island, to complement the one that was provided a year ago, to bolster the ongoing drainage and irrigation enhancement program there. The additional excavator will be used on a pontoon to help in the maintenance of the many outfalls around the island. The upgrading of all major dams on the island will also be speeded up through the provision of the additional excavator. The Agriculture Minister also visited the island of Leguan. At all the islands visited, Minister Mustapha assured residents that the promised fertilizer relief program will be rolled out shortly. On Thursday, Minister Mustapha and a team of officials, including Director General Mr. Ricky Ramraj, journeyed to the Maruka Sub-District in Region 1, Barima Waini, where community meetings were held at Manawarin, Waramuri, and Santa Rosa. At Manawarin, Minister Mustapha urged residents to partner with the government in moving the agriculture development forward in their communities and, by extension, the country as a whole. He said agriculture is but one of several non-oil sectors that directly impact the lives of every single Guyanese.
And as a government, we recognize the importance of the agriculture sector. Because for us to have food security, for us to ensure that we produce our food, we have to ensure that we constantly invest and make budgetary allocation to this important sector. The agriculture sector is one of the most important sector for us in this country. You will say that the oil and gas sector now is taking all the attention, or the construction sector in the housing sector, or the mining sector. That is not so. We recognize that those sectors are sectors that will give us money, give us revenue, so that we can use those revenue to spend it on the important sectors like education, health, agriculture, social services. So those are the things that we use in the wealth of our country to ensure that we spend it in these important sectors. Because these sectors that I have just called directly impact your life. Because if you're sick, you have to go to the health center, or you have to go to the hospital. Your children have to come to the school, and you have to have food to eat.
Minister Mustapha, however, stressed that in pushing the agriculture agenda, residents must be cognizant of the need to adapt new and improved ways of conducting the business of agriculture, taking into consideration the realities of climate change and other critical factors.
We have to change the way, and I heard the village councillor, I believe she's a teacher too, right? Head teacher here. We have to change the way how we do things. Gone are the days when we used to do things or do agriculture in a subsistent manner. Those were things like, for example, you do agriculture, you do small crops just for maintenance and subsistence. If we want to do agriculture as a business, we have to change the way we're doing it. We have to change the practice. We have to do agriculture in a more smarter way. We have to do agriculture in a more scientific way. I've just talked to NARI. NARI is the main research institution for us in this country. I heard many comrades who spoke just now talk about every crop. They have to go and cut bush to get new land. Why? Why NARI can't come and work with the farmers to treat the same land that they are planting so that we can continue farm on the same piece of land? That we have to do. And I am tasking NARI with that task, that after today's visit, their technical people must come and work with you and look at the farm area, look at the land that you are cultivating, and see what are the best crops to cultivate in those lands, and see how we can bring up the nutrition of those lands so that we can get those lands to farm continuously rather than to cut bush all over the place and be a nomad all over and go and cut all over the place. So we will work with you to develop your farm so that hopefully in another few years from now, you will not have to move from that. That will be permanent farmland for you to cultivate your crops.
Speaking directly to the needs of Manowarin and surrounding communities, Minister Mustapha noted that steps would be taken to immediately address some of the issues raised, while others would have to be addressed in a phased manner.
Just to respond to your requests that you all made, I listened to all the requests. We cannot do everything at one time. We have to do things in order of priority. What is important now, short term, what is important in the medium term, and what is important in the long term. The long term is to secure the future of the community. I know for a fact we have a number of programs that you will benefit from, the community will benefit from. For example, the HEATSAT-P program. We have $4 million allocated to this village. I understand that you all want to build a wharf. I don't know if that is important for the community, but you all should look back at it. I am still opening that program so that I will wait on the final decision of the community. You have $4 million to do that. Now the other thing, you raised issue about juice factory. You raised issue about agro-processing facility. Now we recognize that those things are important. That is why this year we will be building almost 10 agro-processing facilities around the country. And what we'll be doing, as you are so inclined that you want one here to make your product more value, to bring more value to your product, I am committed here today that we'll donate $2 million to the village to construct an agro-processing facility. And that will happen very shortly. Very shortly, Mr. Raymond will work along with you to ensure that we build that facility. The community, we can give the spec to the village council. We will help you all, and you all could do the labor and build that facilities so that you will have that immediately within another few months so that you can have your produce to be packaged, have your produce to be made more value added.
Residents of the riverine communities were also assured of help with accessing markets for their produce through the New Guyana Marketing Corporation, but said that first officials of the agency will be visiting the community to conduct an analysis of the crops on the ground and the quantities available, so as to be able to establish the necessary linkages between the residents and buyers. Across at Warramuri and Santa Rosa, the message was the same: assurances of government's unwavering support for the development of infrastructure in the various communities so as to help in the consolidation of the existing farms and also to facilitate the expansion into more commercial size operations. On Saturday, Minister Mustapha joined a ministerial outreach led by Prime Minister Brigadier Mark Phillips, now acting president, to the East Coast Demerara community of Melanie Damashana, where he assured residents of his ministry's help in the revitalization of agriculture in the community. While responding to agriculture-related questions, Minister Mustapha told the gathering that His Excellency President Dr. Irfan Ali and the entire government are interested in advancing the agriculture sector. He also assured that the Ministry of Agriculture, through the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, will work with residents to execute a massive drainage and irrigation rehabilitation program, after which residents will be given the contracts to maintain the drainage structures. A team from the ministry is scheduled to return to the community soon to meet with farmers and to develop a program to restore agriculture in the community. In light of recent flooding and the lodging of floodwaters in some communities, the Ministry of Agriculture, through the GLDA, is warning of the dangers lurking in stagnant floodwaters. Leptospirosis is caused by bacteria that results in severe damage to the liver, kidneys, and other organs of both animals and humans. One risk factor includes walking or playing in floodwaters, especially floodwaters that have become stagnant. Leptospirosis is transmitted through the urine of infected rodents, livestock, and pets. The Leptospira bacteria can enter the body of animals and humans through drinking, through cuts in the skin, or through mucous membranes in the eyes, nose, and mouth. Symptoms of leptospirosis in both animals and humans include fever, jaundice, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, loss of appetite, weakness, stiffness, and severe muscle pain. In light of the current rainy season and widespread flooding, livestock and pet owners are advised to implement good agricultural practices and, where possible, have your animals vaccinated against this disease immediately. A message from the Guyana Livestock Development Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. Farmers and the members of the public in general are being advised that tampering with drainage and irrigation structures in any way is prohibited under the Drainage and Irrigation Act. So too are practices that result in damage to access dams, such as using an inadequate length of tube to irrigate farmlands, resulting in erosion of the earthen dams. Also contrary to the Drainage and Irrigation Act is the practice of erecting structures or planting on government reserves. This will not be condoned. These reserves are to be clear at all times to provide access for the excavation of the channels. Livestock farmers should also be aware that they are liable for any damages caused by their cattle or swine to dams or reserves alongside D&I channels, as is the case when the animals cross these channels. Individuals wishing to erect bridges across D&I structures should first contact the NDIA before doing so. Those found guilty under the Act are liable to fines and imprisonment for up to 3 months. A message from the National Drainage and Irrigation Authority, Ministry of Agriculture. The National Agricultural Research and Extension Institute offers specialized services to Guyana's crop farmers. We conduct research and provide extension and quarantine services to ensure Guyana's food and nutrition security, sustainable agricultural development, and income generation for our farmers. We assist farmers to adapt climate-smart technologies, and at a subsidized cost, farmers could now purchase shade plastic, shade mesh, and irrigation sprinklers to avoid crop loss from the effects of climate change. Our organic soil enhancers are inexpensive and a viable alternative to imported brands. Farm certification, import and export permits for agricultural commodities, soil testing, pest and disease management, among other services, are provided free of cost. Farmers can access quality planting citrus material at our 9 plant nursery locations. We are working with Hope Estate and other stakeholders to resuscitate the coconut industry. For more information, visit our website or call us on telephone number 220-2841, 220-5730. Well, that's all the time we have on this week's edition of This Week in Agriculture, brought to you through the Communications Unit of the Ministry of Agriculture. It has certainly been a pleasure bringing this week's program to you. I wish to take this opportunity to urge that you establish a kitchen garden, plant some of the vegetables that you like. Even though prices for vegetables have fallen this past week, you would want to certainly have recourse to your own back garden in terms of the vegetables you get. That market bill after about 8 to 9 weeks would be reduced. It takes that time to harvest a crop of tomatoes, for instance. It's not hard, I promise you. Until next time then, I'm Christopher Holder, on behalf of the entire production team, urging you to be good to yourselves and to each other.